she continued, her voice growing softer, more introspective. There were always stories of people who ventured too deep into the woods and never returned. Not lost, mind you. Not hikers who took a wrong turn. These were people who were drawn, as if by an invisible thread. They'd walk into the trees, not with fear, but with a strange sort of calm, and they'd just disappear. The woods would swallow them whole, and no trace would ever be found. Did your father ever speak of these disappearances? Miles asked, his pen scratching furiously. He spoke of the toll, Martha replied, her voice somber. He said the land demanded its due, that the balance had to be maintained. He'd tell me about the old pacts, the agreements made by the first settlers with what was here before them. Agreements that were meant to ensure peace, but that also came with a price. She paused, her breath catching. He said that sometimes, when the land was restless, when the hunger grew too strong, it would reach out. It would call to those who were susceptible, those whose minds were open or perhaps weakened, and it would claim them, not in anger, but in consumption, like a plant absorbing sunlight. And the current disappearances, Miles prompted, his voice urgent. Do you think that's what's happening now? Martha nodded slowly, her gaze distant, as if seeing visions in the dusty air. The whispers have grown louder, Detective. They've seeped into the very foundations of the town. And the hunger, it's no longer content with the woods. It's reaching into our homes, into our lives, and it's taking what it wants. The people who are gone, they were all quiet souls, weren't they? The withdrawn ones, the ones who carried a hidden sorrow. Perhaps the hunger seeks out that kind of emptiness, to fill itself. She closed her eyes for a moment, a shiver racking her frail body. My father once told me a story about a time when the hunger was particularly strong, a time when the woods seemed to breathe with a malevolent life of their own. He said that the elders of that time, they didn't fight it, they couldn't. Instead, they found a way to redirect it, to create a diversion, a sacrifice. A sacrifice, Miles repeated, a cold dread settling in his stomach. Not of a person, not always, Martha clarified, her voice a whisper. Sometimes it was a vessel, something that held a strong essence, a vibrant life force that could be offered up to appease the hunger, to sate it for a time. He never elaborated, but the implication was always there, a dark bargain made in the shadows to keep the greater darkness at bay. She looked at Miles, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. I fear, Detective, that whatever is happening now, it's not just the hunger returning, it's a hunger that has learned, that has grown, and it no longer seeks mere appeasement, it seeks dominion. The silence in the room returned, heavier now, charged with the weight of Martha's words. Miles looked around the small, cluttered room at the artifacts of a life lived long and deeply, and felt a profound sense of stepping into something far beyond the scope of his experience. Havendale was not just a town with a missing persons case. It was a place steeped in an ancient, unsettling history, a place where the veil between worlds, between the known and the unknown, seemed perilously thin. And Martha Gable, with her fragmented memories and her bone-deep fear, was the first thread in a tapestry of terror that stretched back through generations, a tapestry woven with the whispers of an ancient evil. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the core that his investigation had just taken a turn into the truly unknown. The echoes of the past were not just stories, they were a prelude. Martha Gable's story, initially dismissed by Miles as the fanciful ramblings of an elderly woman steeped in local folklore, began to take on a disturbing coherence. Her fragmented recollections weren't just personal memories, they were echoes of a deeper, far more ancient narrative woven into the very fabric of Havendale. As she spoke of the keepers of the old ways and the pacts made by the first settlers, Miles realized he was peeling back layers of history that predated official records, that existed only in hushed whispers and the fearful glances of generations. My father, Martha continued, her voice a low murmur, he spoke of a time before even the oldest families arrived. A time when the land was wild, untamed, and deeply, profoundly sacred. He said it was then that the old ones walked this earth, not as men we understand, but as stewards, guardians of a balance that was as fragile as spun glass. They were the ones who understood the heartbeat of the soil, the language of the winds and the secrets held within the very stones. She paused, her gaze unfocused, as if watching spectral figures move through the dusty room. He called them the Stone Whisperers. Some say they were the first druids, drawn to this place by its inherent power. Others spoke of an older lineage, a brotherhood of masons who sought not just to build, but to understand the very foundations of existence. Not the foundations of buildings, you understand, but the fundamental energies that bind the world together. They were men of immense knowledge, or so the stories went. They understood geometry not just in stone and mortar, but in the stars, in the flow of rivers, in the very marrow of the earth. Miles found himself leaning in, his initial skepticism warring with a growing sense of awe and dread. He had encountered secret societies in his line of work, cults, clandestine organizations, but this felt different. This felt primordial. Masons and druids, he mused aloud, the words feeling alien on his tongue in this context. What were they doing here? They were here, Martha explained, her voice gaining a strange, almost reverent tone, because this place was a nexus, a point where the mundane world touched something else, something deeper. They understood that beneath the surface, beneath the roots of the oldest trees, lay a seam, a fissure, if you will, where the veil between our world and another was unnaturally thin. They saw it as a place of immense potential, but also of immense danger. A place that could offer profound blessings or unleash unspeakable horrors. She closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration, as if replaying a vision. My father told me in hushed tones that these ancient builders, these masons and druids, they didn't just respect this nexus, they sought to access it. They believed that within this thin place lay a source of power, a wellspring of ancient knowledge, perhaps even a gateway to realms unknown. They spent years, perhaps even generations, studying the lay of the land, mapping the subtle energy currents, aligning their structures, though no stone remains of them now, only whispers of them in the earth, with the celestial bodies and the magnetic lines of the planet. And they succeeded, his pen hovered his notepad. Martha's face contorted with a pain that seemed to transcend her years. That is where the stories diverge, detective. Some say they found what they sought, a place of great enlightenment. But the most persistent whispers, the ones that my father always spoke with the most fear, they tell of a different outcome. They say that in their zeal, in their pursuit of forbidden knowledge, they pushed too far. They didn't just touch the veil, they tore it open. They sought to harness a power, but instead they unleashed a presence. She shivered, drawing her threadbare shawl tighter around her. Imagine, detective, a force that existed beyond our understanding of life and death. An entity, or perhaps a collective consciousness that was not bound by our laws of physics or our notions of good and evil. An ancient primal hunger that had been contained, slumbering in the dark spaces between realities. The Masons and Druids, in their hubris, acted as its unwitting liberators. They opened a door that was meant to remain forever sealed. Miles felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty room. The disappearances, the unnerving atmosphere of the town, suddenly they weren't just isolated incidents or the product of a disturbed individual. They were the potential symptoms of a far older, far more profound disturbance. So this entity, he began, choosing his words carefully, this presence they unleashed, that's what you believe is responsible for the current disappearances. My father believed so, Martha affirmed, her voice unwavering. He said that when the Masons and Druids opened that portal, they didn't just invite something in, they also created a conduit, a weakness. And whatever came through, it didn't leave. It found a way to anchor itself to this place, to this land. It fed on the life force, on the very essence of Havendale, but it did so subtly at first, like a parasitic vine. It waited. It slumbered, or perhaps it simply grew stronger, observing, learning. The old pacts, the rituals my grandmother spoke of, they weren't just to appease the spirit of the land. They were attempts to keep this other thing at bay, to reinforce the weakened veil, to put the monster back in its box. She gestured vaguely towards the window, towards the dark, brooding expanse of the surrounding woods. The elders of that time, the ones who inherited the knowledge of the Masons and Druids, they realized the terrible mistake that had been made. They saw the darkness that had been awakened. And they lived in constant fear, not of the land itself, but of what the land had become a prison for. They tried to seal the breach, to mend the tear, but it was too late. The entity had tasted our world and it. found it palatable. So, they fled. Those who understood the true horror of what they had done. They abandoned their homes, their sacred sites, and they scattered, fearing that the darkness would follow them, or worse, that it would consume everything they had built. They fled, Miles questioned, the image of a panicked exodus forming in his mind. Why didn't they warn people? Why didn't they leave behind clear accounts of what happened? Fear, Detective, Martha said simply, her voice heavy with resignation. A fear so profound, so absolute, that it eclipses all reason. Imagine seeing something so utterly alien, so malevolent, that it makes the very concept of human existence seem fragile and fleeting. They couldn't articulate it. How do you describe a terror that defies comprehension? How do you warn people of a threat that exists beyond the boundaries of their reality? They could only pass down fragments, veiled warnings, superstitions about sacred ground and forbidden places. And perhaps they hoped that by abandoning the Nexus, by severing their connection to it, the entity would eventually wither and die, its tether to our world weakened. But they were wrong. It didn't die. It merely became more patient. She picked up a small, intricately carved wooden bird from a nearby table, its wings slightly chipped. My father kept artifacts. He said they were remnants of the old ones, imbued with their knowledge, their warnings. This bird, he said, was a sentinel. It was meant to sing when the veil grew thin, when the darkness stirred. He never heard it sing, but I think I've heard it whimper lately, a soft, almost inaudible sound, like a trapped animal. Miles's mind raced, trying to reconcile this ancient, almost mythical narrative with the grim realities of his investigation. The disappearances of ordinary townsfolk, Sarah Jenkins, the quiet librarian, Thomas Miller, the reclusive artist, young Emily Carter, who vanished from her own backyard. It was a jarring juxtaposition, the mundane horror of their loss set against the backdrop of ancient cosmic dread. Yet Martha's conviction, the details she offered about the Masons and Druids, the forbidden portal, the unleashed entity, it all began to coalesce into a terrifying, albeit unproven, theory. If this entity was unleashed so long ago, Miles probed, why is it suddenly so active now? Why these disappearances all at once, or in such a rapid succession? The cycle, Detective, Martha replied, her voice a weary sigh. The old ones understood cycles. Seasons, life and death, the ebb and flow of power. This entity, it doesn't function on our timescale. It sleeps, it feeds, it grows. Perhaps the seals, the wards, the rituals that the elders performed for centuries have finally begun to weaken. Perhaps the passage of time itself has eroded them. Or perhaps, she lowered her voice, her eyes darting around as if expecting an unseen listener, perhaps something has happened to actively disrupt them. Something that has disturbed its slumber, or emboldened it. Something that has made it hungry again, and no longer content to merely subsist on the fringes of our reality. She traced a finger over the weathered wood of the carved bird. My father spoke of thinning. He said that at certain times, when the alignment of celestial bodies was just so, or when certain earthly energies converged, the veil between worlds would become almost transparent. These were the times of greatest danger, the times when the entity could exert its greatest influence, when it could reach out and pull at the threads of our existence. He believed that these periods of thinning were cyclical, occurring perhaps once every few decades or even centuries. But he also feared that such a thinning could be artificially induced, that someone or something could actively seek to weaken the barriers to facilitate the entity's return. You mean someone in town might be trying to help this entity? Miles asked, a wave of cold realization washing over him. The idea was monstrous, yet it fit the narrative. If Havendale was built on a site of ancient power, it was plausible that some individuals, descendants of those who once served or feared the entity, might still exist, clinging to ancient beliefs or seeking power for themselves. Martha nodded, her expression grim. It is a possibility my father contemplated with great dread. He spoke of individuals who became enamored with the old ways, who delved too deeply into the forbidden law, who saw the entity not as a monster but as a source of ultimate power. Those who might seek to serve it, to appease it by offering it what it craves. And what it craves, Detective, is life. It is the essence of all that is vibrant and living. It consumes, and it grows. She looked directly at Miles, her aged eyes holding a profound ancient sadness. These Masons and Druids, they were the first to tamper with forces they couldn't control. They paid a terrible price